Hello, this is Dominic Holland doing my second podcast. I'm very excited. I'm actually in bed and I've got a hat on because trying to look down with the kids, trying to look trendy. And this is very different for me because I'm in bed with someone else other than my wife. It is.
Hello, I'm Dominic's friend.
This is Dominic Frisbee, a namesake of mine. And where are we, Dominic?
We are in Budapest,
Yes, doing a gig tonight,
the capital of Hungary.
which we need to be better than last night's gig, don't we?
I don't see how we can be much better than we were last night.
You can be.
Oh, bitchy.
And we thought we'd do a little chat before we head out to our gig tonight.
It's quite a tight budget, which is why we're sharing a bed.
It's also a tight frame. So, Dominic, we're in Budapest doing a gig tonight, and I thought we'd talk about a little bit about fatherhood because we have a very different lifestyle. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah,
You have 4 children. I have 4 children.
yeah.
But you homeschool one of your kids,
The eldest one, yeah.
which I think is interesting because you had an extraordinary education. You went to one of the country's best schools.
I did. I went to St Paul's School, which is, the girls' school usually do better than the boys' schools do.
Girls do better than the boys anyway.
But of the boys' schools, it's usually like second or third. But I think if you
Right.
average it out over 10 years, it comes out top.
But it's up there.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
absolutely
yeah,
up there.
yeah.
And some famous alumni.
Yeah, George Osborne was
Yes.
in the year below me at school.
Chance of the Exchequer. Year
Yeah.
below Dominic.
Yeah.
He's done quite well.
He's done very well, but I'm pretty sure that I gave him a wedgie
Did you?
when we were at school.
Did
There's
you?
not many people can say that about
Will he
George
remember
Osborne.
that?
I don't think so, but he was in... We had like clubs that we did sport in, and I was in
Right.
E-Club, and he was in E-Club as well.
Yes.
And I just remember huge sort of wedgieing sessions where everyone got everyone, and I'm just sure he was in amongst them. So I've sort of
We did-
adapted the story slightly to say that I gave the Chancellor a wedgie, but I'm not sure it's entirely true.
We did wedgies at school.
Yeah.
But ours were probably a bit more violent. I'm saying I went to a nice comprehensive school. We had some rough kids.
You're making a lot of assumptions there. You're assuming that state school kids give harder wedgies than public school kids do.
We had interesting. I went to an interesting school. We had kids in our school went to jail, and kids went to Oxbridge.
Yeah.
So we had the
Yeah, we had that.
the spectrums covered. Really, kids
Yeah.
went to jail from St Paul.
Yeah.
That's a waste of fees.
I did.
Did you?
I spent a night in prison
Did
once.
you really?
Yeah, for stealing money from phone boxes.
I didn't know that. I thought you were going to say stealing money from audiences.
No, phone boxes.
Did you really?
Yeah.
You did some time.
One night.
That's still time.
Yeah.
That's credible. That's
Yeah.
cool. You should put that in your act.
Yeah, I probably should.
You should.
They did.
Tonight,
They
do
were
it
quite
tonight.
hard with me because when
How
they
old were
called,
you?
I would have been 16.
Wow. Your dad must have
And
been
they
furious.
did. Well, I was more aiding and abetting because I had a friend who there was a whole thing in those days. There was an arcade in Kensington Market, which
Right.
was quite. I know
Posh
it's
area.
Kensington Market,
Yeah.
but it was kind of quite rough.
Yes.
And there was a racket going on where you stuck a playing card inside
Yes.
the old payphones, and then you did something with a coat hanger, and the playing card like caught all the money.
And diverted it.
Yeah,
Ah,
and then
right,
you took
clever.
the playing card out and fiddled around with the coat hanger, and you got the
Clever.
money. And so the rough kids taught you how to do it in the arcade.
You had no rough kids at school. The rough kids at your school must have
Well,
been quite
there was a
posh.
couple. You say that, but they had a whole thing. There was about 800 boys in the school, and there was 144 scholars. They had quite a
Were you a
big,
scholar?
No, I'm not clever enough. And they,
I shouldn't have asked
But they
that.
had a sort of commitment to. They're not only being rich kids at the
Ah,
school,
right,
so
yeah,
they had
very
quite a
laudable.
disproportionately large number of scholars.
Ah.
Some of whom were obviously rich kids themselves, but it was open to anyone. So,
Very good.
So, but anyway, and that's not me defending the school because there was a massive paedophilia racket going on at the school as well. So pros and cons. Anyway, so it was my friend of mine who actually learnt how to do it, and I was trying to persuade him to teach me how to do it, and
Right.
he wouldn't teach me because he didn't want to corrupt me.
Oh.
So I was sort of standing next to him
But
while we
watching.
did it. And then the
Learning.
bloke in the phone box, the next phone box along, while he was doing it, phoned up the police, and the police
Oh.
came along and nicked us. And they put us in separate police vans, but they lay me down. I think they were just lads having fun, but they lay me
You were in
down.
school uniform.
No, it's in the evening. But
Right.
they lay me down on the floor of the police van. They were
Right.
trying to get me to rat on the other guy, basically. And
Ah, I
wouldn't do
see,
it.
right.
And they lay me down on the floor of the police van, and they were going, "If you don't tell us what was going on. We're going to stamp on your head. And this guy had a huge, great, policeman's foot, Dr.
Yes.
Martin.
And you were
head,
16.
Yeah, and my head was face down, so my nose was in the bottom of the van.
Oh, my
And he had
God.
his boot over my head. And he went, if you don't tell us, you don't tell us. 3, 2, 1. And then he went whack like that and stamped his foot down right next to my head. And just didn't actually. But if he'd done it on my, he would have broken my nose at least. I would have thought.
At least.
And then they were like, "You were all right, actually. You are, yeah."
Oh my
and it was.
God.
I think they were just bored coppers. But I think coppers. I don't imagine they'd get away with that today.
No. How is this not an Edinburgh show?
I don't know. I've never really talked about it. It's only you that brought it up
See,
just now.
That's as good a journalist as a journalist as I am. We've just got into bed and all this stuff's just pouring out of you.
It's the intimacy of the bedroom.
Imagine
Imagine what it will be like after we've had sex.
that won't happen.
Okay.
I've never been to jail, but
No.
I did have a little bit of crime with those machines. My thing, when I was your age, or 16, what I would do is I would take a 10 pence piece, I'd wrap it with insulating tape,
Yeah.
I'd get a razor blade, and I'd trim the edges of the tape. So it'd be a sort of like a bicycle tyre around the 10p, and then that 10p would become a 50p, and you could put it into an asteroids machine, and get 3 credits with 10p.
Oh well.
Yeah,
I never
and
knew that.
I used to make the best ones.
Did you invent that?
No. I was shown it by someone, but I was very adept at doing it really quite well. So some of them didn't work. You put not enough tape on, and it wouldn't be heavy enough. I had it down. So all the rough kids where I used to live used to come to me and say, "You're the guy." And they used to bring...
What, Dominic,
So
it's
I
a
would-
very serious crime. Counterfeiting the coin of the crown.
Yes, well,
Very
that's
serious.
absolutely, yeah. But I got away with it because I'm cleverer
Get a
than
lot
you.
more than one night for that.
He would. But that was my
Oh yeah.
little bit of criminality. But I'm
But
interested...
I was cool. Like for about a week
Yeah.
or two afterwards, after having spent the night in the nick, I
And
was
school
like,
didn't
cool.
expel you?
I don't think they ever found out.
Oh. Well, maybe they can... Well, maybe you shouldn't do this. Maybe you shouldn't put this out.
Well, they get me back at the school to present awards
they?
at the thing. So yeah.
You should tell that
The,
there.
Yeah, well, when I was at school, I got locked up. How many of you have been locked up?
So now you homeschool your eldest, which is I'm interested in because I'm not a massive fan of all things education. I think a lot of education doesn't serve our children as much perhaps as it serves, certainly university. I think it serves our lecturers more than our students at too many universities.
Well, are we talking about school or university?
Well, school really, because your lad is at school, isn't he? So
Well, yeah. I'm quite a big believer. Excuse me, I'm just turning because my neck's hurting. I'm quite a big believer in the principles of homeschooling anyway. I think, and I wrote quite a lot about it in my first book. But the reason, but it takes a massive commitment on the part of the parents.
Sure.
But there's lots of evidence that shows that homeschooled kids, at least to a certain age,
Do well.
Do extremely well. And there's actually arguments.
do better. Oh, really?
Yeah. And there's actually arguments whereby, whenever you see, there's often every now and then there's a 13-year-old kid who gets into Oxford, some genius maths kid, and almost invariably they've been homeschooled.
But you're not arguing for that, are you? Because that would be
No.
a bad thing, I would imagine.
No, I'm not arguing for that.
No,
I'm just making the point you asked about how if they outperform.
Yeah, okay.
And if you've got a prodigy of some kind,
Yes.
often or
Yes.
if you've got a kid who's unusual in some kind of way, often schools are not flexible enough to cater for for that kid's needs. But there's also a lot of evidence whereby in a school you tend to learn about a subject in a slightly removed way. So, for example, rather than go into track a river and study Oxbow Lakes, you study Oxbow Lakes in a book,
Sure.
or you'll study chemistry in a slightly removed way.
Yes.
Whereas there's a big argument that if you just take kids out of school and you don't teach them anything at all, specifically they just learn about life, they will learn basic maths from going to the shops,
Yes,
or they'll learn basic physics from just playing around with things in the house, or chemistry, whatever.
Right.
So there is quite a strong argument for that, and that you learn more when you actually live the subjects rather than learn about them in a sort of removed academic way.
And
they
I guess
become more
also-
fascinating that way as well.
Yeah, and I guess also you learn more salient stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff that's appropriate for your life.
Yeah.
Rather
you
than
do.
sort of oblique stuff that you may never apply.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another criticism of the education curriculum in its current form, is that a lot of people argue that it was devised for a different age.
Okay.
you know, an industrial age, and we're in a sort of post-industrial society, and a lot of the stuff you learn is of limited relevance to the world in which we live today. I mean, I see that argument, but I see the other side of it. I don't.
And what about the social side of things? I mean, I know your lad did go to school and has now gone into homeschooling later. Because I mean, at school,
Well,
obviously, you learn hierarchies, you learn bullying.
You do,
you learn...
but then the way that the school year is divided. So, for example, the one kid who's born on the 31st of August, and then the other kid who's born on September the 1st. You know, they're in different years when they're only one day apart. So
and
there's
that's
a lot of arbitrary.
Isn't it?
Yeah, and there's a lot of little hierarchies that emerge, and there's a lot of evidence that particularly sports kids are born in the kids who do well at sports.
Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Malcolm Gladwell. Read him, people. If you want to
all of those things that are, you know, apparently quite innocent create all sorts of imbalances, and then also you're thrust into an environment a lot of the time just with kids your age.
Right.
Whereas if you maybe are homeschooled or you have a big family, you have a much more closer contact with people of many different ages a lot of the time. I'm not being quite dogmatic about this. I'm just describing what the arguments are. And none of these are, by the way, why I ended up homeschooling my eldest.
Well, we'll come to that in a second. But let me just make a point, because my eldest son, Tom, who hasn't had a vast schooling because of what he's been doing professionally, I think because with Billy Elliot back in the day, he was associating with adults, choreographers, producers, some of them very illustrious people, and then movies, you know, Ewan McGregor and the like. I think part of his confidence is that as a young boy, he was having to, or have almost as his peers, people who are not just illustrious but adult, and I think that served him incredibly well. People ask me, how's your son so confident? And I think that's a big part of his confidence. Now, obviously, you can't have his life, you can't prescribe that for everyone, it's not going to work, but he has been very advantaged, I think, by those associations.
Yeah, and I don't know this, but I imagine if he's a good actor, he's also looks at the world around them and is able to impersonate.
He is a good actor.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. I'll take your word for it. I've never seen Spider-Man, but I'll take your word for it. But I mean, if he must be, but so he's able to look at people around him and copy, see what is good behaviour. Exactly.
Yes. Okay, so that's interesting. So are you happy with the homeschooling? You obviously are. You've said that.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of happened slightly by accident.
Right. Go on. Tell me.
My son was like he was very good at maths, not like genius at maths, but just he got an A star in his GCSE.
Okay, that's very good.
And
I failed.
We weren't in a maths. You know, he's not in a mathematical. You know, his mum's hopeless at maths, and I'm sort of only halfway decent. It's not like you know we're in a mathematical environment. So he got his A star completely off his own back, and he chose to do mathematics A level. And at the school he was at, they had some kind of deal with schools in South Korea and China.
Oh,
and so loads of Asian kids come over for
brilliant.
A-levels. And, you know, Asian kids are like 2 years ahead of us mathematically.
Yeah,
they have a different system of teaching maths. I think they have a different way of...
And a brain wiring as well. If you Malcolm Gladwell, he says, because of the rice fields in Asia, there is a thing within their culture that has wired their brains differently over thousands of years.
Oh, I didn't know that, but that's possible. But there's something to do with the way maths are taught, or the system of numbers that they use, which means they get ahead early in their life, and then as a result of getting ahead, they just stay ahead.
Right.
Also, a lot of these kids are just hot-housed anyway. They've got very ambitious,
which I don't
pushy
like,
parents.
But
Whatever, that's what goes on.
Yeah.
Anyway, Samuel was put in the top set for maths in his school. And there was like him and 2 other local kids, and the rest of the kids were Asian and Chinese.
Right.
And he came back from school and he kept going, "They're so clever, Dad, and they're so fast."
Right.
And it turned out they'd all already done the course before they'd even started. And they were like correcting the teachers and stuff.
Oh my God.
And he had his like first assessment at half term. This is in his first year of maths, and he'd gone from an A star to a U. Now the gap from GCSE maths to A-level maths is big, but I thought he can't have gone from A star to a U. And he wanted to give up maths, do something else. And I was like, no, you're good at maths and it's useful, don't give it up. Maybe I was wrong to do that. Anyway, in the meantime, his new maths teachers got a bit shitty with him, and they were saying he's not working hard enough, he's not doing that. And I was like, this isn't right. And then the school then went and won the national maths championships or something
with
like
those
that.
students
With the
from
Asian kids.
Yeah. Okay.
And so everyone was like, oh, the school's won the national maths championships,
Right.
aren't they amazing, aren't they amazing? And we came to the parents' meeting towards the end of the first term. And I'm sure his maths teacher got a sadistic pleasure from going to, because Sam was kind of quite a cool kid.
Okay.
And the maths teacher was like, we're dropping him down a set. And I looked in that guy's eye. There were two of them, and one of them, I looked in his eyes, and maybe I'm projecting my own, but I just saw that he got a sadistic pleasure from dropping him down a set and sort of almost humiliating him.
It's nasty.
And
that.
yeah, and I was like, I'm not having this.
Good for you.
I'm not
Good
fucking
dad.
having
Good
this.
dad, people.
And so, but being a comedian, I think, gives you the courage to speak out
Yes.
when you see an injustice
Yes.
and not be scared to speak out.
Right.
And I sort of lost my temper a bit with the teachers in the
Good for
parents'
you.
meeting, and I was going, hang on a minute, you're sitting there all complacent because you've just won the national maths championships. You haven't won the national maths
You've busted in
championships.
these kids.
Those kids. Teachers in China and
Yes.
South Korea have won the national math championships. What you've done is you've taken an A-star kid who's got there completely organically down to a U in half a term.
And bust his
you need to
confidence.
be asking yourself some long, hard questions.
Good for you.
So
Good for you.
there was like this big whoa, and they didn't like it. Anyway, I then found this website called tutorhunt.co.uk where
Right.
you find a tutor in your area. And we got this...
That should come up now, shouldn't it? I should have a little
Yeah,
graphic, shouldn't
yeah,
I?
and get like £10 for every
And
person
back ref
you
your
refer.
book as well that you mentioned earlier.
Sorry.
We haven't mentioned yet.
Anyway, I found this website and we got like the best reviewed tutor in
Right.
our area in our price range.
Uh-huh.
And he came and taught him a couple of lessons. And it turned out this kid was just like a 19-year-old boy from King's College University who was just looking to supplement his student days. The most together 19-year-old kid you've ever
Very
seen.
good, very industrious.
Not like geeky mathematical.
No.
Like, 6'2", blonde, blue eyes, worked out in the gym.
Why
you know,
bring height into it?
Because
Is that relevant?
yes.
No, it isn't.
It is. Tall men are statistically higher achievers than short men, Dominic. Your son accepted. You don't know
Also,
this.
I am
You're
rubbish.
If you're above
So-
6 foot, you're more likely to be a CEO of an American company. And that kind of thing.
I did read that and I haven't slept since. And I'm rubbish at maths.
And you do know that, like, women who go to sperm banks, the
Want
one
tall
thing,
men. I know.
They ask
I know
about
all
the head
this.
of race, IQ,
I know.
athleticism, is height.
Disgusting.
And like, if you've spent time on Tinder as I have, you'll see that
And I haven't.
loads of women. Well, I should hope not, but loads of women they all go tall, over 6 foot, over 6 foot. And
So I've got no chance on Tinder, have I? That's why I'm staying in with my
you
marriage.
have to pick up
Nikki's
the
safe.
comedy side of things.
Get funnier.
Yeah. Anyway, so this kid who we got in just was going, oh, he's perfectly good at maths. He'll easily get an A. You know, he's one of the, he picks it up straight away.
Well,
He's a
isn't
bright
that
kid.
encouraging?
Yeah, it was encouraging. And anyway, so then we came to the end of year exam, and he got like an E.
An E.
An E. And I was like, what? I thought we'd turned a corner here, and Sam was like, oh, there was too many questions in the exam, Dad. It was just, I couldn't get it done in time. And I was like, oh,
It's not great in a maths exam.
no. And then the school said, if he wants to carry on doing maths next year, he has to get a C. So he's going to have to resit the exam in August, and he has to get a C. Otherwise, he's going to have to drop it as an A level. He worked really hard over the summer. He reset the exam in August. Sorry, he got a D in his June exam. He then resat the exam in August, and he got an E. And he'd worked. I watched him over the summer. He'd worked really hard. And I said, how did you go from D to an E? And he said, there were too many questions in the paper.
Right.
So I then got the teachers on the phone, and it took me ages to get the teachers on the phone, but I got one of the teachers on the phone. How many marks were in the paper? And he said, I think it was like 130, 120.
Yeah.
And I spoke to his maths teacher. I said, how many marks are there supposed to be in an A level? And he said, 70, 60 or 70. So I went back to the teacher and said, I thought you were supposed to be 60 or 70 marks in a paper. And he said, yeah, there are 60 or 70 marks in an A level. I said, well, there's 130 marks in your thing there. And he said, let me call you back. And then the next day he called me back, or 2 or 3 days later, and went, there's been a mistake, and we've asked too many things in the paper, and we're upgrading him, and now we're giving him a B. And I looked at his thing, and he'd got like 100%.
Wow. So
in the
imagine
first
had
half.
you not intervened.
Yeah, exactly.
Had you not
he would have
intervened-
resit the whole fucking year, or only do 2 A levels. And so...
Oh, Dominic,
and
that's terrible.
Yeah, and I looked at his paper, and he'd got 100% in the first third, and then you could just see him losing it. And in the last third, he got 0.
Because there were too many questions
Yeah,
for the
and he
time
panicked,
allocated.
and he panicked.
Oh,
So
That's-
anyway, so at this point, I'm like, fuck
you lost confidence then, right?
completely in
Yes.
the school. I don't want him to go back.
No,
And-
I would
and-
agree.
and,
This is a fee-paying school. You're paying for this.
Yeah, yeah.
You're paying for this honour.
Yeah.
dubious
and this
honour.
is like 3 days before the beginning of term.
Right.
So, and Samuel's going, please don't send me back there. I don't want to go back there. And I don't want him to be exposed to that maths department. They've undermined him. And
Yeah.
I haven't got time to look round for another school. His mum's ill, so, it's just me. And so in the end, we got... I've looked on that website again, and
Yeah.
I found the best reviewed teachers in his other two subjects, and just started home tutoring him at home while I looked around from the other school. And then the home tutoring, I just really liked the other tutors. It was going really well. He goes and meets one of them in Islington and has his lessons in Wetherspoons. And he goes and meets and they're all like either at the university or just out of university. He goes to meet the other one at King's College and has his lessons at King's College. So he gets a little flavour of university life.
Okay.
This is is it King's College, the university, the one in the Strand, whatever it's
Yeah,
called.
King's College. Yeah, it's very illustrious.
Yeah.
Very bright kids go there.
And they're all just something. And the cost to me is about half the cost of a public school, of a state school. And
so win-win.
I think so. And he's getting one-to-one education. He's built up a really close relationship with his tutors. They're really nice. They need the money. The standard of his work, because I look at his work and I read his essays and stuff, has
Dominic,
improved
brilliant.
beyond all belief.
Wow.
So that's why we're doing it. But ultimately, and we wrote about all this in his personal statement for university, and he's got good offers now from university. So he could go to Bristol or Durham or somewhere if he gets decent grades. So the proof will be in how well he does in his actual A levels. So I don't want to start crowing.
No, quite.
But I think probably if he'd stayed at the school, he might have got like maybe BBC or 3B, something like that. So anything ahead of that, I'll consider a result.
You're up.
Yeah, but we'll see.
Okay, well,
we'll see.
and I'll tell you, one in the eye for the school, you think?
Oh man, if he does well, they're going to get a snotty email from me for sure.
Absolutely. Let me.
That's what I do when I'm angry. Snotty emails.
Your segue, or not your segue, but your explanation of the organics of that story remind me of a story that happened to me just recently. I did blog about this, but it bears repeating. I was at a gathering recently, and my whole family were there, including Tom, and there was an Indian chap, quite a rarefied chap, well spoken, and he came up to Tom, and he said to Tom, "Do you have a degree?" Oh no, I think he said, "How old are you?" And Tom said, "I'm 22." Tom doesn't look 22, and he said, "You're 22. Do you have a degree?" And Tom said, he maybe even said, "What degree do you have?" And Tom said, "I don't have a degree." And he was aghast. And he said, "Why don't you have a degree?" And Tom said, "Well, I didn't go to university." He said, I just didn't go." And he said, "Right." He said, "Well, that's ridiculous. At your age, you've got to have a degree. You must go back and retrain." So Tom was quite enjoying where this was going, and his brothers with him. Sam and Harry.
Guy hasn't seen Spider-Man. Obviously.
Yeah, and well, this is the point I'm coming to. And Sam and Harry, his brothers, were enjoying this sort of conversation, and we're going to get to the reveal. Tom says, "Actually, I don't need a degree. I'm Spider-Man." And so Tom said, "Well, you know what? I'm acting, and it's going pretty well, and I'm okay. I think I'm set. I'm not being presumptuous."
Yeah.
And then the guy said, "Okay, well, I think you're wrong. Just to let you know, though, my children are big fans of Spider-Man. And can I have a signed photograph? Can I have an autograph for my boys?" So this is an Indian chap who knew who he was, knew that he plays Spider-Man, and wants Tom to go back to university to get a degree, which I thought was very common.
Yeah, it's funny. But you do get...
Different cultures, I suppose.
It's not just different cultures, it's you get wedded to... This is the right way of doing things.
This is the only path. The only path to success.
And particularly in that Indian thing of, that really ambitious Indian thing they've got going. This is what you do. You go and you don't do a stupid subject like English. You go and do medicine or law or something like that. But yeah,
It's
Stefano's
funny.
like that.
Yes, he
Stefano
is.
Paolini.
Yes.
His dad was always like, get a second profession, become a mechanic. So he trained as a mechanic while being a comedian.
Did he?
Yeah.
Well,
if you ever need your car fixing, Stefano's the man.
Well, before Tom got cast in that big Marvel franchise thing, we were panicking about whether it would continue because we had no presumptions about Tom's future. Mm-hmm. So we sent him on a woodworking course in Wales. He was at a residential woodworking course, and they were all coming out of the army and coming out of jail, retraining. So they're all pretty, toughened blokes. Some of them had done phone box crime. They'd done nights in jail as 16-year-olds, and Tom was there as this young, vaunted actor, learning how to use a lathe and turn a bit of wood.
It was a brilliant experience for him.
It was great.
I bet you what will happen is, like, at some point there'll be a brilliant role come along that involves the guy, you know, a carpenter.
Right.
He'll be playing Joseph or something, Jesus' dad or something. There'll be some like role where he has to be a carpenter.
And Tom will be
he'll
a
just
shoo-in.
be able to draw on that. Let me just
We were interrupted there by actually
a phone call.
by a phone call from his mother. When I say
Not my
his,
mother.
when I say his mother, I mean the boy who went to do woodworking in Wales.
The future Joseph.
But Dominic, I think that's a great example what you've just shared with us of being a good dad, really good dad. Because the best part of your being a dad there was that you didn't accept that grade D. You figured that there must be something at play.
Yeah, because I know he's good at maths.
And you know what? A lot of remiss parents would have missed that entirely. And I think you've done your son a great service there. A great service.
Thank you. I think we have too much trust in our institutions. This is not just schools, across the board. We have too much faith in our institutions. And often when you prod around, I mean, like, that's one of the things about Brexit that we've seen is almost every institution is just unable to deal with it. Because it requires thinking outside.
The temerity of people to say no.
Yeah, but Parliament's just been unable to cope. You know, the parties as they're set up, you know, with half the members of half the MPs in each party remain and half the MPs in the party leave. You know, it's just exposed the whole inflexible thing, and there's just incompetence everywhere you look. And sometimes if we just put our faith blind in institutions, if you dig around a bit, actually, it's a bit of a shitfest going on. And you know, obviously, as a parent, your first priority is to protect your son. You know, maybe I've got it wrong, and he isn't good enough to do A-level maths, and I shouldn't have pushed him into doing it.
All my instincts are that you've got it right. And here's the thing: whether the institution is on it and absolutely doing a fantastic job, nobody knows your son better than you.
Yeah.
Nobody, certainly not a teacher who has a limited access. You know, 30 weeks a year, 4 or 5 lessons a month. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think you've done a great service, and I'd be interested to see how he gets on, young Sam, is it?
Samuel Frisbee, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get him on.
Lovely.
Next time we
Fantastic.
do a gig in Budapest,
there you go.
He'll be in bed beside the two of us.
And tonight is going to be a huge success.
Yeah.
Last night was tough because I thought the audience were. It was too thin. You need a room that's full.
Yeah, it was half full, and there was a couple of really drunk people in who upset the rhythm and kept heckling and wouldn't shut up.
Sure.
And when you put them down, they didn't.
They enjoyed it. I was putting
they thought they were helping.
Yeah, the guy was really, because I was on last night, and he was really enjoying the idea that Dominic Holland was talking to him, and then such to the point that after the gig we were sitting there having a beer, and he decided to come and join us. At which point I made a hasty retreat. That was my leave.
Yeah.
That was my leave cue because I'm not going to speak to someone who's been trying
somebody
to
heckles you all evening.
Yeah.
And upsets your gig and talks over your feed lines.
Yes.
And upsets your rhythm. And you know, you do spend a long time making a routine work.
You do.
And then it comes and talks to you afterwards like he's some great friend and you're going to embrace him for making your gig work.
No.
But I mean, by that stage, he was so pissed and repetitive anyway.
He was. But I think tonight, Budapest, the city looks amazing. We like Budapest. We are in these unbelievable apartments. Okay, they are in a mansion block in Budapest, famous city, one of Europe's signature cities, I would say. And this is a stunning apartment. And
what they've done, if you look at the headboard behind us,
look at, can we
this is actually a door.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's
really
an
old door that they found and reclaimed.
We're in bed together. I've never been in bed with a man before. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
I went to public schools, so it's happened to me quite a lot.
I'd rather the man be less hairy. I'll be honest. Just on the before we leave, the games you played at school, that cliche, is it a cliche? The biscuit game. Does it exist? Have you ever played it? Did you win?
I've never heard of it. I mean, I've heard of it, but I've never. What is it called?
Never experienced it.
No,
soggy biscuit.
No, there was something like. Oh, I can't remember. There's this horrible thing.
Yes, it is horrible. I mean, I've never known anyone who's ever.
And it's the last person who.
Yes.
Yeah, has to eat. No. What's
yes.
The word?
No.
Creaming the cracker. Creaming the
custard.
Oh God Almighty.
Anyway, so it doesn't exist.
I never encountered it
in your vaunted school.
No.
Good to know. This has been.
But maybe it's because St Paul's was a more advanced public school. Maybe and some of the more backward ones like Eton. Maybe it went on there. Who knows?
Didn't go on at my school. And if it did go on at my school, I was glad I wasn't picked.
Not tall enough, Dominic. If you'd been 6 foot, you'd have been fine.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And there will be more. And this doesn't follow any particular subject. I know that. I'm aware of that. It's a little bit amorphous, a little bit vague, but I enjoyed doing it, and I hope you enjoyed watching. And check out Dominic's book. What was the book called? The one you wrote?
Well, the one we were talking about was a book called Life After the State, which I wrote. And by the way, your review of my book
I did.
Is the top-ranked review on Amazon.
That's the only thing I'm top-ranked in ever.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't take height into account. That's why.
You're quite rude about
I
that.
know.
You're not
but
a giant.
you've been quite horrible to me early on
You're
today,
not a
so I'm sort of
giant.
getting. No, I'm no.
You're
giant.
my support act.
5'9".
I'm headlining.
And the other book I wrote was called Bitcoin: The Future of Money, which I wrote back in 2014. Because as well as being a comedian, I'm a financial writer, which is kind of odd combination.
I would say you're more financial writer than comedian.
And I've got another book coming out in the autumn, which I'm going to plug now, called Daylight Robbery:
Right.
The Past, Present and Future
Good.
of Taxation.
Okay.
Do you know that's where we got the expression daylight robbery from?
Did we?
The window tax.
Make a note of that.
Yeah.
I did read that book, Life After the State, and I was saying to you as we were flying out here from London, I really enjoyed it, but I'm sad. Well, not sad, but I'm frustrated with myself. I can't remember the thrust of the argument that I can then repeat when I'm meeting people and chatting to people. I don't have much retention these days. And so maybe we could do a chat at a future date, Dominic, on,
Sure.
on the salient points of that book, because I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we touched on them today. Too much faith in our institutions.
Okay, all right, okay. Anarchic
But-
then, but it's not anarchic. It was just common sense when I read it.
Yeah, it depends on your, like, you have anarchists who believe in, and I'm talking about anarchists who want chaos, but anarchists
No.
believe in no government, that government is the cause of all
Right.
problems. And I think sometimes I have a lot of sympathy for that point of view, and sometimes I see myself more as a minarchist. In other words, I want minimum state.
Okay.
But, roughly half of everything we ever earn is taken from us
By the government.
by the government to pay for things that the government provides. And, if you look at the great societies, great civilizations, it was usually much closer to 15%,
Okay.
1.5. So
it's
I'd like us to get back below 20,
It's
put it that way.
tipped too far that way.
I
then.
think so.
All right. Well, let's talk about that again, because it was a very interesting book. It's called The Life Beyond the State. Available.
Life After the State.
I apologise. Life After the State. This has been Dominic Holland and Dominic Frisby doing the Dominic Show in bed, as Morecambe and Wise did.
The two Doms.
The two Doms. I'm slightly smaller, but definitely on last tonight.
You were going to say funnier, and then you
No,
didn't.
I would never have said that, but I meant that.
How many songs have you done about Brexit that have had 32,000 hits in
Yeah,
one
he's
day?
currently got a big viral video, and Dominic, I said today on Twitter, he has a viral video called the Brexit song, and he's normally insufferable anyway, but with a viral video, he has been very hard work today. Dave's the comper. He's exhausted us by showing us his notifications all day long.
Yeah.
Don't go and add to them. I certainly don't like it if you do.
Man, it's addictive. It is.
I can imagine,
sends
yeah.
off these neuro something
Yes,
or
it
other.
does.
Like you're getting all your retweets and your nice
Yes,
comments.
and it's
man.
very
It is-
affirming. But
yeah.
you can see for a child how dangerous that would be on Instagram. How many likes.
My daughter is prey to that.
I don't think any child is not prey to it, really.
Yeah,
Dominic. I
and
think
the whatever drug it releases in the
It's
brain,
in-
whatever
it's in
chemical
do-
is. It's not endorphins. It's
No, it's
neuro
something
something
else.
But apparently it's the same one that some heavy drugs give off.
Absolutely, and it's a natural form, so you need it. It becomes sating. You need
Yeah.
to drive it. Therefore, another photograph. Someone once told me that their daughter puts a top on, she takes a photograph, puts it on Instagram, and depending on how many likes it gets, she then wears the top again or not.
Oh, bloody hell.
And I just thought, wow,
It's
that's
amazing
the
that
start
the
of
likes
madness.
come in that quickly.
That's shocking, though, isn't
Yeah.
it? You think, God, that's such a faux affirmation. You know.
My daughter, my 16-year-old, I don't even know what they are. Snapchat something.
Yeah, I don't do those.
And
I know what they are, but yeah.
yeah, and it's like I sometimes go in her room. I thought, well, what's Eliza been doing? Because I haven't heard from her for 90 minutes. I go in her room and she's just like monged out on her phone.
Well, yeah, no, I think all children. And I was reading the book I'm editing. Remember I told you?
Yeah.
It's about he's a guy who's a cybersecurity expert, and I'm helping him funny up his book. And he was saying if he doesn't have any children, he said the one thing, because I've got 4 kids, as he knows, and he said the one thing I would do if I had children, I would never allow them anywhere in the house with an internet connected device where I didn't know where they were or what they were doing.
Yeah.
And it terrified me because I thought, well, our kids, from my youngest up, that's all they do.
What are those schools called where you have there's a word for it, that type of schooling where you have no phones and it's very traditional? I've forgotten what it's called, but all the guys, all the Silicon Valley millionaires do that
Jeff
with their
Bezos
kids.
and all that. They have no
have
access.
kids, no phones,
isn't that
no
telling?
shit. Yeah.
Isn't that telling everybody? All the parents watching this, all the kids who've got parents who let them go in, because I do. I mean, I'm afraid, because the kids are
Steiner schools.
Steiner schools.
Yeah.
Okay, they're probably really expensive that I can't afford.
Of course they are.
We're digressing. We've got to go and do a gig.
Goodbye.
We've got to go and be very funny in Budapest. I definitely will be.
It's 50-50. It really is. You never know what you're going to get.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dominic. Best wishes, everybody. Thank you.